Hey everybody, welcome to Big Shots. I'm Sal, and joined with me as always are my co-hosts Ben and Ethan, where we talk to prominent creators in the comic book industry and just chat with them about random stuff. If you're not familiar with our show or channel, you can always join us on youtube.com/tvlittlehouse or on littlehouseonline.com. Today, my guest is Mr. Yale Stewart from the prominent webcomic JL8. How you doing, man?
I'm not doing too bad. Well, I take that sort of back.
Okay.
I'm doing well in some aspects and kind of crappy in others.
Oh.
There is nothing more, for me anyway, more detrimental to productivity than really nice weather.
Oh, yeah.
And we've had really, really nice weather here in St. Louis for the past, probably going on, almost a month now.
Oh, crap.
And yeah, so, it's great when I, sit outside and stuff, but I will be the first to admit that my workload has dramatically dropped because
Right.
I'm just kind of sitting there being like, I'll do this later when
Yeah.
it's not so nice out. But the problem is, it is always nice. It's
Right.
either nice and warm during the day, or at night it gets nice and cool.
Ugh.
So it's just I just don't ever not want to be outside.
It must be hard to not be able to have like a summer break for cartooning. It's kind of like, well, I got
Yeah, I mean, I could do it if I just applied myself. I
right.
mean, because especially since I'm pretty much my own boss. If I really wanted to, I could just go super hard during the course of the year
Oh
and
yeah,
build up like a buffer
right.
or something. Because I mean, at the same time, when you're this age, you only really need like a full month. I personally, I would probably get really bored if it were like a full 3 months of not doing anything. Like
Yeah.
how when we were kids.
Hmm.
But yeah, it would be nice to just travel around a little bit, go
Yeah,
see
exactly.
friends
No,
in
you
different cities.
take it from somebody who doesn't have a job. You could find a lot of things to do with your free time.
There's always Netflix and
Yeah, that's the
There,
thing. Even if
there's
you,
always there's always some video game left to play or
that's
some
right.
comic left to read.
Oh my God, there's so
So
much.
I guess we'll kick things off. I'm going to introduce you to my fellow co-hosts. This is Ben Baragona
Hi, Yale.
hey, how's it going, man?
and Ethan Marsh.
Howdy.
Hey,
And like the premise of our shows on YouTube and on this podcast is that I have read comics for the last 20 years. These guys never read them when they were kids, and now that we do shows about comics, they read them when they are assigned them, and maybe a couple for like pleasure, like. But their knowledge and experience with comics is still kind of in the layman stage. So I thought, hey, we'd try out a podcast where we talk to prominent creators in the industry or similar industries. I feel like bringing them to the party really makes it kind of more interesting because they'll ask questions that I probably wouldn't even think to ask because I just don't have the outsider, perspective.
yeah,
We're talking with Yale Stewart today, artist, writer, creator of JL8, the prominent webcomic based off of the pantheon of DC Comics characters. Some of us, myself included, might say preferable alternative to the DC universe at this point. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys?
We're doing well.
Pretty good. Very good.
You've been doing JL8 for a couple of years. I guess the first question that I have is what made you kind of decide? All right, I'm going to do the Justice League versus, say, your own creation or like a Marvel or some other universe kind of approach.
Well, I tried my hand doing the creator-owned thing pretty much like the last quarter that I was in college. I started working on it. I graduated in 2010, so I ended up. I mean, I basically wrote and drew a full 110-page graphic novel.
No shit.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, I didn't really have anywhere to put it, so I basically just put it up on DeviantArt,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
like the whole thing, and it fell so flat on its face. Like,
uh,
and it was, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that was really hard for me.
Yeah.
Because I try to stay humble, but at the same time, you have to be confident in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So, I really thought that this is going to be something that at least a handful of people will really enjoy.
Yeah.
Even, because to me, a big audience would be 25 people
Right.
or
That's
something
kind
like
of like
that.
we are, yeah.
Yeah, and out of all 110 pages, admittedly, I'm not sure if I put all 110 up there. It may have been the first 48 or something. But either way,
Yeah.
the whole thing got maybe 5 favorites
Ugh.
or something like that. And I was just, I was hurting.
Yeah.
Had you been on DeviantArt previously, active, or was?
Oh yeah. I mean, granted, I was never necessarily like a DeviantArt guy. You
Mhm.
know, not like Cheeks or somebody who is like really active in the community all the time.
Yeah.
But no, like I'd had like a decent watch base and stuff like that. And yeah, people just like didn't seem to be interested.
Wow.
And like it brought me down, but at the same time, I was also really acutely aware of how much I had grown from the first page to the
Oh yeah.
110th page.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, maybe like I still believe in it, but maybe it just needs to be like a little bit more refined. And my good friend Trad and I, in 2011, that was like when we started doing conventions,
Right.
and we knew that we were going to start. We knew that we were going to go to New York Comic Con. So I was like, okay, let me like redraw the first 32 pages, well, first 24 pages, which turn into 32 pages,
Gotcha.
and let me basically like do like a print run of that to take up to New York Comic Con to like give to people
Right.
or whatever. Now at the same time, I started JL8 in 2011 because I was also going to start working on the sequel to the first Gifted.
Yeah.
But I was living in Savannah. I had moved back to St. Louis. I sold my car when I was in Savannah because you really don't need one,
Mm.
whereas you do in St. Louis. And since Gifted is kind of like a pseudo autobiography thing, I needed like reference material and stuff that without having a car I couldn't go obtain.
Right.
So I was like, well, I need to do something in the meantime. I don't want to just like sit around on my hands because that's how you become a never was or
Right.
whatever. And yeah, like one day I was at work and some ideas that have since become JL8 strips kind of popped into my head. It seemed like a funny idea. So I went home, I banged out like the first one or two strips. I showed them to my friends because that was originally just what it was going to be. It was just going to be something that I showed my pals.
Right.
Mhm.
And Trad eventually convinced me to like put them on Tumblr or online somewhere. And I was just
Right.
like, well, Tumblr seems like it has this like inherent sharing thing.
Yeah.
So
And it.
like let me put it on there because also I don't know how the hell to build a website. I wasn't paying attention
Yeah.
in class because I mean we were taught that at SCAD, but I didn't really take notes.
Gotcha.
So anyway, you know like
Didn't take notes.
so I put it on Tumblr, and again the Gifted thing didn't really pan out because again like it's such a weird thing. Like it's very it really is kind of a story catered to like a digest format, like a
Right.
manga, and I tried to break it up into like a first issue kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you've read it,
Yeah.
Sal. I saw the review you gave it, like, and that was
Oh yeah.
totally on point. Like, it's
Well,
not that good.
no, I mean
Like,
like.
Is that what you said, Sal? Oh my
I
god.
might have said something. Who can remember anymore?
I
But the
mean, that's
fact
so long ago.
it was so long. It was maybe 8 months ago. So let's.
Had you met him when you
We
gave
had
him the
yes.
scathing review?
I had yes. Yale and I had met previously, and I picked up a copy of Gifted. I'm such a huge fan of the art. I was like, okay, here we go. You know, it's funny. It actually kind of reminded me of my first book of Horseman.
Horseman, yeah.
Because it was very like you had a lot of like familiar characters to the author, but you had like there was this kind of like you have to figure out how to like really pitch the characters to the audience and make
Yeah.
them approachable.
exactly, and like all that stuff basically happens in like Act 2
Yeah, and
of the quote unquote graphic novel.
right.
So yeah, it's just like a horrible format thing, and like JL8 like started picking up steam
Yeah.
around like issue number 9. Like it went from because the Tumblr ended up hitting like 100 followers, which I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
100 people are reading this thing. This is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And then Kate Leth ended up reblogging the 9th one, which is like the whole brooding smorgasbord one.
Yeah.
And yeah, my readership quintupled. It went up to like 500 readers in a day
Ugh.
or something like that. And then like these things would keep happening where like IO9 did their write up on it.
Yep.
Scott Snyder tweeted about it.
Yeah.
So before I knew it, I had, like 5,000 readers, 20,000 readers, 30,000 readers. And really it was just this thing where it was like, I had developed like a weird loyalty complex to the audience
Right.
where I wasn't really that invested in continuing it, but I felt really bad to just like leave people hanging. Well, because like I've read webcomics myself before that I got like really into, and then they would just stop.
Yeah.
That's very
And
frustrating.
it sucks. Like, you know, you're sitting there being like, what the hell, man? Like,
Right.
at least give me some kind of closure.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in just ending something like I never had sort of like a Deus Ex Machina that I could pull out to be like, oh, and this is the final one.
Yeah.
I have thought about what the final storyline will be, because I mean, at the same time, I never intended, even when I was thinking about the audience, like I've never intended to just keep it going forever.
Yeah.
But I did know, like, okay, how is this all going to wrap up? And I've thought about it, and given the rate that I tell story arcs,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take like at least like 5 years to tell the thing, because you know I think in like traditional comic storytelling format, you know, like 22 pages, 6-issue arcs, whatever.
Yeah.
So that turns into like a 120 page, 200 page epic.
Yeah.
And if you're only doing 1 or 2 updates a week,
Oh, it'll take some time.
that's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, recently I've really wanted to try and get back into Gifted, because again, I feel like maybe if people saw like the whole picture
Mm-hmm.
instead of reading like the first couple words of a sentence,
Right.
they might enjoy it a little bit better. And if not, you know, at least I'll say, well, I hit it when I did know what I was doing, because at least I could argue before it was like, oh, well, like I wasn't really a professional at the time,
Yeah.
whatever, whatever. Whereas like now I know how to tell a story, or at least some people think I know how to tell a story, and I know how to draw better. So it's like, if I can't pull it off now, then clearly it's just not that great of a concept.
Right.
So, but at the same time, you never want to just kind of wonder what if,
No. Yeah. No. And you don't want to
or
like.
whatever.
Sometimes you really
So
have to go after it.
Yeah. Like you have to see it through. I know exactly what you mean. Like you need. Sometimes there's a bug in you and you got to get it out. Like you just gotta like okay. Like I know I didn't do it right the first time, or maybe I see some things. You know, I think there's a big difference between like legitimately giving it another try and like George Lucasing it up and being like,
No, I can do it better.
yeah, I'll just go back and do it again. Like, you know, you're not revisiting like old JL8 strips and being like, now that you know more, like, oh, I'm just gonna do it again and
Some
again.
dewbacks in the background.
Yeah,
So.
let's put Darkseid in the background and he's zapping people. You know.
yeah.
He's giving them the Omega Sanction.
Oh, God.
It's like Omega Sanction's everywhere.
We had a big thing about the Omega Sanction. It's a thing. Check it out on TV Little House on YouTube.
That, and also, I mean, you know, it is no secret that like I'm fully well aware that you know, JL8 is just a fan thing through and through. Like,
Well,
I feel like it's okay since I'm not monetizing it,
yeah.
but like there is nothing more cryptic than, you know, copyright law
Oh yeah.
and stuff. So like I certainly, you know, like I've never wanted to step on anybody's toes, but I have thought about the very real possibility that, like, for all I know, I am crossing some kind of line that shouldn't be crossed, and maybe DC will come down with the hammer
Right.
at some point. Or
yeah.
at the same time, I think that JL8 is more than a novelty, but maybe a lot of people view it as such, and maybe eventually that novelty will wear off to where they're just like, oh, you know, like I'm kind of tired of reading about cute superheroes
Right.
or whatever. Even though I think that I'm putting more into it than just that, there are plenty of people who sometimes don't see that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, even with like movies and whatnot, you know, people just like the nuances and stuff go like right either over their head or under their radar, whatever.
Well, some people are going to definitely tune in and be like, oh, look at these cute little superheroes. That's so fun. And they're going to like a particular aspect of it. And some people are actually going to get the work that you're trying to do. And it's entirely like within the broad spectrum of both of those things. Some people are all about your progression and where you're going with the story. And some people just want to pop in for like a quick laugh. Like, how do you get both of them?
It's tricky.
The point you made about fan creations and the fact that it's just a fan creation. I mean, like the reality is the response you've gotten for JL8, the response you've gotten for your career, you've legitimately earned it through actually producing something. And while you may be using, you know, like the tapestry of the DCU, I think that you're actually telling something earnestly original and something that's very much your own. And I think that people definitely notice that and respond to it. I think that's why it's moved on from being, it's not fan art. It's not just and even then, like, fan creations are something legitimate in and of themselves. But I think you've taken that and actually kind of transcended fan art to something actually like original and something that's actually like content as opposed to a way to get views. Because like you we know based on DeviantArt's popularity, like if I draw my original creation, I'll maybe get like 4 likes. But if I draw Power Girl, I might get 1,000. So
Yeah.
while there is kind of a fine line, I think it's definitely JL8 is a legitimate. I think it's legitimate art.
Well, what's the difference between fan art and a comic book that has the DC stamp on it? Like, they literally, DC paid someone to make something they wanted to make. Like, I mean, the Avengers films are a big fan film by Joss Whedon that Marvel just paid him to make.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily a bright line just because you're not officially paid by DC right now.
No, and I mean that's a really good point and something that gets debated around a lot. Because no, I mean, a lot of people like don't like to admit to the fact that that's what is happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the only difference between Kevin Wada when he was originally just doing those like X-Men fashion revamps
Yeah.
versus Kevin Wada right now is that now he's being paid to do it.
Yeah.
Like, he is literally doing the exact same thing he was doing before. And thank God, because his stuff is effing amazing.
Oh
like,
my
I could look
God.
at Kevin's stuff all the time. But yeah, like, that is the only. He is literally doing the exact same thing he was always doing. It's just now Marvel, to their credit, realized this is something that we should capitalize on because this stuff is really fantastic.
Yeah.
Why are we letting him just toil away in like his quote unquote fan art
Right.
zone?
Now it's interesting you bring up Kevin Wada because he's working for Marvel. He's doing the She-Hulk covers, which are freaking amazing. That's how I came onto his art.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, you mentioned your friend Trad. I'm assuming you mean Trad Moore,
Mm-hmm.
who is drawing the Ghost Rider book right now.
Yep.
Um,
The last issue of which I think came out today. I think
is that the last issue?
it's the last that he's working on.
Oh, okay.
He's only doing the first 5.
Oh, that's cool. That makes me kind of wonder: has DC ever approached you and said, "Can we do something together?"
No.
That's mind-bending to me.
It's not mind-bending to me because it's DC. Literally, if you were drawing like an little Avengers book,
Yeah.
it would.
I feel like
I feel like Marvel might have actually come up to you.
Yeah.
12 variant covers.
And now Marvel did come up to you to do Nova, right?
Yeah, they did.
A little.
Well, 2 things. First, like, as people are gonna find, well, I mean, it's been announced. Like, I did do 4 children's books.
Yeah.
Under the DC banner, but it's not quite the same thing.
Mm.
Like, Capstone, the publisher who publishes the books, hold a DC license, and they were the ones who came to me.
Okay.
So, like, as far as I know, DC literally doesn't even know who I am.
Right.
Other than they saw my artwork and were like, this needs to look more like Bruce's stuff.
Right.
Or whatever, since that was like a huge stipulation to the book. Like, it had to be in that merchandised style. And then, yeah, with the Nova thing, as flattering as that was, I kind of think maybe I had some friends on the inside pulling the strings on that one.
Well,
like, I could be wrong. I mean, Steve Wacker, the editor who gave me the gig, seems like, he's not going to just give people jobs to appease anybody.
No.
But yeah, I mean, at the same time, it was kind of like, I do know quite a few people at Marvel, like editors and stuff. So yeah, we'll see. And also, since it was just kind of like a one-off thing,
right.
Like, had I continued getting work or something, maybe I'd be like, oh yeah, no, it was legitimate. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just me being too Larry David.
It's surprising to me, while, Ethan, you said like it's a big corporation, I'm not really surprised that they didn't really go for it.
DC is just inept.
Yeah. It just seems like it's a no-brainer to those of us who aren't working in the industry. It's kind of like, why wouldn't you use this clearly hungry a resource that's producing content that you could use literally tomorrow for free. What comics are you reading today?
I wish I had an answer for you. I mean, the one thing that does come to mind that I've just been all about is Southern Bastards.
Oh shit, Southern Bastards.
That book is like crazy good. Like, I haven't been that excited for a new comic in a really long time. I've made sure to get back into the habit of picking up the new Miss Marvel stuff because my buddy Jake Wyatt is doing the interiors for a couple issues, and I'm a huge fan of his stuff. So I really wanted to see that. I feel like there was something else that I made sure to pick up the other day. Actually, you know what? I picked up the Romita Jr. Superman stuff
Yeah.
out of curiosity because I was a really big Romita Jr. fan.
Yeah.
His stuff had kind of not really done it for me lately.
Yeah.
But I was curious and I picked it up, and I will be the first to say I was really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a really interesting story. I'm not really sure how original it is. Like, it seems like a story that may have happened before, like in the Silver Age.
Oh, the like dark
the idea of like a second Superman, but he's from Earth.
Right. It seemed like a neat
or
idea.
Whatever, but like the character of Ulysses.
Yeah, it felt kind of like, haven't we seen this before? But then again, I can't name an instance where I know we've seen it before.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it could be one of those things where it is like it's such an obvious story idea, but just had never been done before.
Right.
Because I mean, that's usually what people say to me about JL8, and which is why I personally have a hard time taking too much credit for JL8, because to me it just seemed like such a no-brainer.
Right.
Like, it seems weird when people think that it's like some brilliant concept. I just think it's weird.
Yeah.
But then obviously other people are like, you're an idiot. Like, if it were such a no-brainer, then somebody would have done it already. And I'm just like, well, okay, I mean, that's a fair point, but
yeah. Well, I think there
still,
also, it's a kind of a moment in time where like a person with an idea, which maybe is kind of a no-brainer idea, doesn't have the ability to pull it off in the right way. So you need both, like someone who's got the art style that matches the idea, and the balls to do it, to kind of come together, and that might be what's kind of rare.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for that, because at the same time, yeah, like another thing that I don't like to take credit for kind of is the writing, because to me, the ideas come so naturally
Mm-hmm.
that it's ridiculous. So like, on one hand, I'm just like, oh, like I'm basically just harvesting these things out of the ether.
Right.
Whereas somebody might say the only reason that's happening is because maybe you're just really good at coming up with those kind of story ideas.
Yeah.
And like, I try not to think of it that way, because that's, in the art world, an ego is a very easy thing to fall prey to. And I'll be the first to admit that as a kid, I was a little bit of a pretentious dick. So I try to be like super on guard
Right.
about stuff like that, maybe to a fault. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those just like eternal questions. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure from the outside looking in, because yeah, like, I think James Heron's drawings probably come super naturally to him, whereas I look at it and I'm just like, James, where the hell are you going in your head to get to some of this stuff? Or like Jay Lee's stuff. Like, I don't even know what Jay Lee is doing anymore.
Oh, I don't
like know. I just look at it and I'm like, well, he's on some next level shit right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's like looking at being like a part of the Akira project,
right,
or something, and just watching like number 28 moving his stuff around, be like, that is beyond my comprehension. I'm just glad I get to be here to see it.
Right.
So
one thing that kind of strikes me about you as an artist is the amount, just the sheer volume of commission work that you do, despite the fact that you do.
I mean, I have to.
That's okay. So it's really just that's your bread and butter is the commission work. Because
like I said, I can't monetize JL8.
Right. Yeah.
Inherently.
Oh yeah.
Actually, like, I have people that are just like, make a print copy so I can buy it. Like,
yeah,
let me give you money, and I'm like, haha, I can't.
Like, dude, trust me, I would do that.
Yeah. So for me, it's about the commission stuff. I mean, like, it's weird. There are times when I can be really fast, or at least by my friends' standards, because they'll look at me and just be like, man, you work really quickly.
Yeah.
And I can usually do that with commissions because they're essentially always fresh. Whereas working on a page, even though you're working like panel by panel, you're still thinking about like the entire page.
Yeah.
So for me, by the time I'm done with like that 8th panel, I start to get like really burnt out working on that particular page, even if it's
Gotcha.
not done. So that can kind of impede my process a little bit. It looks like I do a lot of commissions, and maybe I do a lot of commissions, but like compared to how many commissions I probably could be doing, it's really not that much.
Gotcha.
Like I could probably do at least 5 to 10 commissions a week.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
You know, assuming that like they weren't massively intricate
Right.
or whatever, but like sometimes I just don't really want to.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
I mean,
like sometimes you just gotta hang out with your friends, or you know, take a walk in the park or something.
yeah.
You got to live your life too.
Yeah, exactly. It's not all just work and production. Like it may be that this is something that you like treasure and this is an experience that you love doing, but it's like you got to break it up. Like just like you were saying, like you know, working on the 9th panel, like you got like the monotony or the just like the fact that I'm done with this page. I really don't want to work on it. I can imagine like commission work is kind of nice because it breaks it up a little bit. You're like, okay, I'm gonna draw this over here for a little while and then come back.
Yeah, it's also nice because I can draw bigger.
Mm,
Like it's just fun to be able to kind of open up a little bit
yeah,
and you know like let a single figure take over an entire page
I noticed that.
instead of a bunch of tiny little you know,
Yeah,
itty bitty panels.
I noticed that in a lot of your commission work where you really do love to explore the space. It's very like the character kind of just takes the whole like center stage, and I kind of like that. I find it to be a while it's in the very similar style, it also kind of is a big departure from what you're used to when you're reading JL8.
Yeah, well, a lot of that is just because I'm really not very good at composition.
Well, you
That and
could
also
be.
like that and like you also never really understand, like you never know how a client is going to respond
Mm,
to something, and it's always better to basically just give them. I mean, most people want a big figure and they want the character facing them.
right.
You know, like I would love to do a commission where you know Bruce is essentially his back is facing you, but maybe it's a more powerful image
Yeah.
or something. But you never know if you're going to give it to somebody and they're going to be like, but like you can't even see his face. What the hell?
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm sure I'm sure you guys saw that like way less common Dark Knight poster from the Dark Knight movie where Batman is like looking out of like a skyscraper window at Gotham and
Yes.
it's just a view like from his back. That poster was fucking awesome. But
Yeah.
no, everybody wanted to see the goddamn Bat Pod. Like that poster was stupid. Like it was so dumb and like generic
Yeah.
and everything. And I mean, granted, Batman looking out a window isn't super creative, but it's like it's a more visually interesting image. Like it also had that lovely like turquoise color palette
Yeah.
and everything, and like it was just more visually interesting to me anyway.
You know what
Um,
you also reminded me of is the Alex Ross Batman image where he's kind of like 30s bat like he's in his 30s and he's got the top part of his suit off and
oh yeah, and you see
back.
all the scars on his
Yeah.
back.
Like
Yeah, I mean that to me is like one of the definitive, like that image crystallized Batman in my head pretty severe. Like that's probably like number 2 after like the Bruce Timm Paul Dini, you know, like after the whole animated series stuff.
yeah.
Because like you just never think about that. Like Batman would scar. He's not like Superman
Yeah.
where he doesn't take physical damage. Like after a while, yeah, his back would be like a road map of
Yeah.
victories and failures. I always thought that was great, but I'm sure there are some people that are like, he's not in his mask.
Yeah,
That's
right.
stupid.
That's not
And it's
Batman.
just
That's
like,
just
you're
some guy.
stupid.
You're stupid.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's funny we've been talking about DC. You did an arc in JL8 where the Leaguers kind of like change up their costumes and update them to be the new 52 version. Um, I always kind of looked at that
Mm.
as your kind of opinion about the switch over to the new 52. Is that
That might be why they haven't contacted me.
I would not be surprised because they are kind of petty over there about that kind of thing. But what was your opinion of the new 52 switchover?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say because like admittedly I just really didn't read any of it.
Mm,
I mean, like I read The Court of Owls and I read Death of the Family
yeah.
or whatever, you know, like the Snyder and Capullo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I've even stopped reading that. Not that it wasn't good,
Right.
but I've just, like I was saying earlier, it's just hard to keep up with titles anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I gave a few books a shot. None of them really spoke to me in any kind of profound way. Like, I enjoyed the Batman stuff. Animal Man was fantastic.
Mm,
You know, when Travel Foreman was still working on it.
yeah.
Um, and I'm sure it was still good even after he left. But as much as I like Raphael Albuquerque, the only reason I was reading Animal Man was to see Foreman's artwork because I thought it was so interesting. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like the story was really cool too.
Yeah.
But I thought that he brought something very unique. So when he left, I'd stopped reading. But no, I mean, like it was just one of those things where not all the titles, but like it very much felt like look at how grown up we are.
Right.
Yeah.
That's literally the theme of
And
your story arc with JL8 was them being like,
no, yeah, and like, you know, DC is not the only person who's fallen victim to that.
oh no,
No.
oh no.
But
I mean, everyone,
you know,
no, everyone in the big two both share their load of shit.
it's just they're kind of the ones who had it happen the most recently.
Yeah, they were the most front and center about it.
And I mean, shit. I mean, Image did for a long time too, where like all their stuff felt very much because like there's a difference between just mature content and stuff that is mature to prove how mature it is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you see it in video games all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are plenty of games that are rated M that are absolutely fantastic pieces of art.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of games that are rated M that are just gratuitous and
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Duke Nukem Forever now, just because that's the most recent like, ugh, what are you doing? Rated M game that I have in my library. I was just like, God damn it.
Yeah, but at the same time,
I mean, it's Duke.
I can almost like Duke Nukem Forever is essentially, or at least I would like to think it was essentially like the Expendables, where like
That's fair.
it really knew because like that was why people liked it at first, and eventually it kind of almost became like a parody of itself.
Yeah.
Because like I think to Stallone and Schwarzenegger and all those guys credit, I think they started to realize like the movies that they made back in the 80s were actually really dumb, but they knew that like people kind of liked that about them.
Yeah.
You know, because like these days, you know, there was a time in my life where I wouldn't be caught dead watching Commando or something because you know, like I was all snooty about it.
Right.
But now it's just like it for what it is. It's just
Yeah.
a fun, ridiculous action romp.
That's right.
Like he scalps a dude with a buzzsaw blade like a frisbee. Like,
Oh, that's like
why? That is awesome.
Commando is like, whenever I pitch Commando, I'm like, we should watch Commando on Blu-ray tonight. And people are like, why? And I go, because when are you going to see Arnold Schwarzenegger take over a small Latin American country? There is only one movie where he does that.
I mean, when he's walking down the hallway with like two M16s, like one in each hand, like no one can do that.
No.
Like it's just so ridiculous.
That scene in
And I
the
mean,
tool
my
shed
God,
when he lops off the guy's arm with the machete and he just looks at it and goes, ah,
yeah.
gold.
But no, when he
Still-
spears the dude with the pipe and like the steam comes out, that doesn't even make sense.
And he says, let off some
Like,
steam, and you're like,
yeah,
He
it's
is.
the best. It is so cool. Like,
that's the thing that like I feel like the Expendables are kind of like when people. I did not see Expendables 1 because I was like, I had heard that Arnold was only doing a cameo, and I saw the roster and I was like, this isn't gonna be like it was. It's like and I kind of feel like that's true. Expendables 2, I feel like Stallone was like, oh, okay, you want to see something, you want to see this, and he did it. I kind of feel like he might have gotten it righter with Expendables 2, but I feel like like I don't know. I want to like them more than I think I feel like I do, because none of them are gonna reach that level of like where they like the guys who were making those movies back then, John McTiernan, Paul Verhoeven, like they were making movies. They weren't making a reference to their movies, and like
oh yeah, no, like they believed in what they were doing.
exactly, and it's like
Yeah.
at no point did they think to themselves like, no, in Total Recall, Arnold is gonna pull the arm out of the chair, and it's gonna have these two pylars, and he's gonna impale a scientist in the throat with them, and that's gonna be how he escapes. And at no point did he think, will that be gratuitous and ridiculous? Will anyone laugh at this? No, he was like, well, how else would he escape?
Well, it's the other question of like, why would a chair be built like that with this giant spike in it? Who cares? We need it.
Yeah, why would RoboCop interface with a computer with a giant spike? Well, because how else is he going to stab that guy at the end in the throat with it?
Mhm.
The Expendables are kind of like they feel like a neutered version or like a less idyllic version of what was, and that's kind of
Yeah, because sometimes things can also be like too self-aware
yeah.
to where it's like it's almost like the person who self-deprecates too much
Yeah.
to the point where it's like, dude, you're trying too hard in the other direction.
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, I hate to say it, but like sometimes Conan is really guilty of that.
Thank you.
Like Conan O'Brien. Like, I love Conan. I think that he's great. I would kill to be a guest on Conan.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes it is like, dude, you know people love you. And like we love that, you're like you embrace like that you're tall and gangly and like goofy and kind of dorky, but like you can be confident sometimes too. Like that's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes he just plays the whole like, oh, I'm a weird loser. Like it's just,
Yeah, and it's like
it's just too much sometimes.
yeah,
You can have too much of a good thing.
That's right.
Yeah. I think in Conan's case, like, he literally has some issues.
Like he
with
legitimately
his
doesn't
self-esteem.
see.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
he's one of those people who I think just will never be satisfied with himself.
Oh no, that is
For us, it's
absolutely
very-
that is absolutely true.
Right, but for
But
us who
at the
don't
same
have $4
time-
million, like we're just like we just have to get over it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like
Yeah, man.
you have your younger versions of the characters. Is that the request you get the most when you do commission work? Is like do the JL8 versions of them?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that something that you're kind of
Yeah.
like, man, I wish you'd want me to just draw a real life Martian Manhunter?
It can kind of depend.
Mhm.
Honestly, like sometimes I will get adult commissions, and at first I'll be really gung ho about it, and then I realize it's actually been a really long time since I've drawn. Because like there's a difference between drawing like the adults in JL8
Oh yeah.
and drawing like an adult superhero. Because the thing that I discovered with doing an adult superhero commission is like I don't know if they want the same tone or not.
Right.
Because like with all my kid commissions, they're like inherently funny,
Yeah.
or they're trying to be like lighthearted and stuff. But when someone wants like an adult Batman, usually they want him to look badass,
Yeah.
or something. And I've never made any pretense otherwise. Like that is just not really my forte.
Right.
Like I can do cool looking stuff within the context of a comic,
Yeah.
I think. But when it comes to just like pin-up stuff, it's really easy for me to fall into just like generic tropes
Right.
and stuff. And for me, I don't want to do that because it's like, dude, you're paying me 150, 250 and up dollars for this drawing. I don't want to give you something that is going to look like something everyone else has.
Right.
The other problem is like when it comes to Superman and Batman in particular, I really don't have my own look for either of those characters.
Mhm.
And I really don't want to just draw like the Bruce Timm design
Yeah.
for them. So it becomes really kind of difficult. So yeah, it becomes like this whole sort of weird thing. I actually did about 6 full-blown adult commissions not terribly long ago, much all thanks to Mark Rubinkowski for being super patient about those things.
Cool.
Because yeah, like he waited at least like a year and a half for, and technically he's still waiting because I haven't been able to ship them to him yet.
Oh shit.
But like, I mean, like I told him, I was like, dude, nothing's coming out that I'm happy with, and you paid me a lot of money for these things, and I want to be sure that they look good.
Yeah.
And I mean, fortunately, I did it, and people seem to respond to them because I posted them on like my Facebook page and stuff. But yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I'm sure it'd be fine if I was working on both JL8 and like a more traditional superhero comic at the same time.
Oh yeah.
So I was kind of like working out both muscles.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, when you're doing just kind of like goofy kid stuff, it can be kind of tricky to switch gears like that. So, but no, at the same time, on the other hand, sometimes it is like a really hugely needed just like change of pace. Because you get so tired of just drawing Bruce over and over and over, and it's like, man, somebody asked me to draw, first of all, a girl,
Yeah.
Preferably an adult girl,
Right.
and let me do something kind of cool and sexy with it or something,
Yeah.
because I like drawing stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually an interesting point that I had a question about. Do
Mhm.
you ever find that the style of art that you do when you're drawing the young characters, does that ever not translate to a particular character? Do you ever have like someone that you like, man, I really want to draw them young so that they fit in with this story or this thing that I'm doing, but when I draw them, they look wrong.
It hasn't happened so far.
I guess that's really a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, there are characters, because like the way I draw the kids is not exclusive to JL8. Like that's essentially how I would draw kids in any given comic. The same way that the adults are the same way that, like, I don't have like a JL8 drawing style and then like my non-JL8 drawing style.
True.
I draw it all the same way I would draw anything. But there are some characters who I feel if they came to me and were like, "Would you like to draw this book?" I just cannot imagine I would be able to do it justice because it's just not really like in my sensibility. Now, granted, it also depends on like the tone of the script and everything. Because obviously, had you shown me Somni stuff on Daredevil when I was reading Bendis, I would have been like, I don't really think that'll fit. But it works perfect with Mark Waid's stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas Alex Malev's Daredevil stuff would look really weird with Mark Waid's Daredevil. You know what I mean?
It would,
like
the tone wouldn't work. It'd be confusing for the reader. Just be like, what point are you trying to make with this?
Yeah. So like if there were like a more lighthearted Hellboy story, maybe I could do it justice. I don't know. But yeah, like if somebody were to be like, how would you feel about doing a issue of Hellboy in Hell? I'd be like, well, no. Because first of all, I don't want to see anybody but Mike draw Hellboy in Hell.
Right.
But I just don't think that I would be able to capture the mood and stuff. Or at least, I mean, I'm sure I could if I really, really tried.
Yeah.
But I think it would be very obvious that it's not me, like in my natural environment kind of a thing. And then I'm kind of like compensating. Like when you introduce a friend to like your other group of friends and they're from like a very specific crowd and you can tell that they're having to like adjust their personality type to try and fit in.
Yep.
I mean, some people can just be social butterflies and fit in everywhere. But yeah, other people are like very at home in a certain type of situation, and then when you put them somewhere else, yeah, it just reeks of insincerity.
Right.
Sort of, which isn't meant to be like a mean sounding thing, but like that's just like literally what it is. It's just insincere because they're having to pretend to be something that they're not. So yeah, or like if somebody was like, "Oh, draw Angela," I'd be like, "Well, that might be tough." I mean, I'm sure that I could do like a kitty Angela and make it cute and everything. But if somebody wanted me to do like a sexy Angela, I might have a hard time with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually kind of want to see that now because, like, when you were saying, like,
I mean, I did do a Spawn recently, and it
I
came
saw
out
that. That was
pretty well.
That came up like I was like, holy shit! Like, this is really different, but really works. Like, it worked in your style, but it wasn't like this is little Spawn and like it wasn't. It was a very. I feel like using your language, like I felt like it was very sincere.
I mean, it helps that I was huge into the character when I was a kid. So like, and because that is actually the biggest thing when it comes to commissions that I have a hard time with is like when people commission characters that I'm just not familiar with.
Right.
Because then you literally have nothing to resort to but a generic pose or whatever because you don't know the nuances, so you can't. Like maybe you have a friend who has like a really specific way of moving their hands when they talk or something, and you could draw them doing that. But if you take them to like Six Flags, that dude is just going to draw a dude who happens to look like your friend.
Right.
But it doesn't have that like soul to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
So yeah, like that, well, between kids and adults and all that stuff, that's my biggest hump to overcome is when people are like, oh, draw this character that sometimes I've never even heard of.
Right.
Much less, or even beyond not heard of, but like it's from like a franchise I've never even been super into because like I was a Transformers kid, not a G.I. Joe kid.
Right.
So like if people want, like, oh, draw a Baroness, I'm like, I am so lost.
Yeah.
Like I have no idea how this, like I know like the basic idea, but I couldn't do something that felt like, oh yeah, this dude really knows G.I. Joe.
Right. It's not going to be your Baroness. It's just going to be a drawing of Baroness. I have another question that pertains more to both Gifted and JL8, which is, you've been doing JL8 for a couple of years. you've been using it on Tumblr, which has been a great way for it to find success. It's found its audience, and it's a great way for you to cover your ass so that you don't get accused of trying to monetize on it. Because once you create your own website, it's a slippery slope to creating ad space and just.
Hmm.
Alternatively, you took Gifted and approached it from a comic book perspective. What like from an issues kind of idea. Whereas you kind of wanted to approach it from like a digest perspective, like maybe nowadays. My question is, have you and would you consider taking Gifted and making it into a webcomic?
I mean, like, I've thought about it because people have brought it up. Maybe at a certain point it could work that way, but like that big first story arc
Yeah,
that I have in mind, that the thing that you read was like the first 32 pages of,
exactly.
I just don't think that it would translate terribly well to a webcomic. I mean, maybe it would, but then again, I'd have to redo all 32 of those pages
Right.
to make them viable as a webcomic because, when it comes to a webcomic, when you're reading only one page at a time,
Yeah.
ideally you're making each one of those pages a standalone. And, people can read it and feel like they read an entire thing in that one update.
Yeah.
Maybe not like a whole story, but like each page has to be like a mini story.
Right. It has to something that make them that draws them to keep coming back, and also like feel like they got something out of the visit they came to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can end a conversation in a webcomic in the middle of a conversation, provided the point in conversation changes to the next point, where someone, like, drops a bomb. That makes sense. But you can't
Yeah.
just stop in the middle of a conversation and then pick it up in the next webcomic when there's actually no change in tone and nothing actually different happens
Yeah.
in the story.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been catching some flack for in JL8 most recently, because like we're really deep into a narrative right now,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be built up in order for the climax to work.
Right.
And a lot of that is essentially it's not technically exposition because it's not characters just like speaking out like A B C D,
Yeah.
but it is character interaction that's going to pay off later. But because people can't see the later, they feel like I'm basically just like spinning the tires
Right.
right now. And it's kind of one of those things where you just sort of have to like throw your hands up in the air and be like, this is just what I got to do.
Right.
Like, like it'll pay off in the long, like I feel like I know best
Yeah.
for the like the long game. But yeah, like in the here and now, I see a lot of people on like Reddit and stuff who are just like, man, nothing has happened in like 20 updates. Some of that I'm like, you're just clearly not paying attention.
Right. I mean, like,
Others sometimes they are making valid points. And, well, I still consider them kind of invalid because I know that these things will be important later on, but I can see how they feel like there's literally nothing happening other than characters talking to each other.
yeah.
The thing about Gifted with being a webcomic is like Gifted thematically is very reliant on like letting the like little moments play
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, because like it's very of the like Seinfeld, Dazed and Confused school, where it's kind of like, I wouldn't say like decompressed storytelling,
Okay.
but it's very much about kind of like the minutia of life
Right.
and
Yeah.
stuff, just like goofy little moments between people.
Yeah.
And a lot of what makes goofy little moments between people interesting are the negative space.
Right.
Like what happens in between what you're saying to one another, or like while they're having this conversation, this character does this thing instead of just sitting there statically talking.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need multiple panels to show that person doing that thing, like cracking open a beer and flicking it, doing that like thumb finger flick
Yeah.
thing to send the bottle cap spinning, these kinds of things. And it's something that like I have a real hard time omitting from JL8, and that's why sometimes the updates are like 17 panels long because I feel like that's really imperative to get people to really feel like they know these characters beyond just I grew up reading Superman or whatever. Like I want them to feel like they know Clark specifically,
Yeah.
not just the idea of Superman that Clark embodies.
Right.
And everything. Because I want them to be unique to JL8.
Well, in a way, you don't want to jump like straight into certain actions because it confuses readers.
I mean, I'm probably going to do like a weird webcomic hybrid thing with it because I've really been kind of kicking the tires on Patreon lately
Okay.
and seeing how that's going to go. I mean, I'm going to make it very clear that basically what it is people helping support me to create this graphic novel.
Right.
And, like, I will post updates to get their money, basically. But, like, it'll only be, like, 1 page at a time, 2 pages at a time. But, like, please be patient because, like, this is a long story. I'm acknowledging that, like, I'm feeding it to you bite by bite.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And hopefully when I, make it live, people will get behind it and stuff. But I guess we'll see.
I actually want to bring the conversation around to something you said in the beginning with having difficulty trying to get to the work because it's so beautiful outside and there's so much nice things to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever find that sometimes the things that you're doing are really inspiring certain arcs that happen in your work or different activities that you're doing are showing up in comics?
I mean, they used to back when I had friends who lived near me. Because I mean, I'm living in St. Louis now, and pretty much all of my close friends don't live here. So as depressing as this is going to sound, like, I have virtually no social life here in St. Louis. So, like, when I'm sitting outside, I'm literally just by myself, like going on a walk through the neighborhood or something. But back in college and stuff, when I was like going to parties and interacting with people all the time, that stuff absolutely showed up in my work and everything, because, like, you can't help but be influenced by the events of your life. And I mean, especially when it comes to JL8, like, I'm drawn on stuff occasionally from, like, way back in my childhood that I remember, or, stories I've heard from other people about their childhood. If you keep getting out there and keep interacting with people, keep making friends, keep dating people, keep whatever, you're constantly refreshing it. Granted, I'm sure eventually a lot of the stories will become kind of similar. But you never know who you're going to run into, like, whose quirky mannerisms might manifest into a new character or something like that.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned hitting up cons. You have a couple coming up. You're going to Dragon Con at the end of the month of August.
Yep.
Why Dragon Con for you?
Well, Dragon Con, Trad and I and some of our other friends, we started going there, I guess, in like 2010 because we went to SCAD, which is in Savannah. And it's like right there.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh man, like Dragon Con, and like we'd heard good things and everything. Granted, we were rather surprised when we got there because like we took our portfolios and everything. We're like, oh man, like we're gonna meet all these cool people, and Trad and I were literally the only 2 people that we saw there with portfolios. But no, like it's a fun convention. I have a lot of friends in Atlanta, and it's just sort of become like this annual thing that we do.
Nice.
Because for the last 3 years, well, up until last year, we would just go for something to do. Like it was just a fun, like, little vacation type deal.
Yeah.
But then last year I got accepted, to actually table there.
Right.
And I was like, well, I go anyway. I might as well try and make some money while I'm there.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, that's what we do. And then like Trad and I go to Baltimore every year.
Yeah.
As well. So I'll go to Dragon Con and I'll just stay in Atlanta for the week.
Oh, cool.
And then Trad and I will like road trip up to Baltimore together.
Oh, nice.
So it becomes like this whole little shindig that we do.
What other projects do you have coming up that we can look forward to talking about, promoting, or expecting to read?
Nothing.
Just well, I mean, not nothing. We got JL8 still coming out, still going strong. We are neck deep in your in the Bigfoot / Bruce Caron story arc, which I found was a lot more in depth than I expected it to be. Yeah, I'm really excited to see where it goes, and I'm sure readers are as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. Like it's admittedly, I've seen a marked downtick in like reader interaction and stuff during the whole Bigfoot thing. I mean, like some of it, if I want to be a pessimist about it, it's just, yeah, like JL8 is kind of worn out, so it's welcome. But on the other hand, it's like, well, Bruce isn't front and center. And we all know that there are people who are just interested in Batman. Like there's no secret to that.
You could say the Batman
That's
is one of the
crazy.
most money-making characters for DC. No, that's crazy.
And, like on top of that, Flash is the only one even wearing a costume.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, like it's not as easy for people to like share around.
Right.
Yeah.
And for non-readers to like recognize what they're looking at.
Yeah.
So in a way, this is JL8, almost like its most independent part, because like I'm not like obviously the characters are the DC characters, but you kind of have to pay attention to know that.
Right.
So yeah, I feel good about the arc, and I think people, when it's all finished, will look back on it fondly. But yeah, we'll see if there's anybody left by the time I finish it.
Well, you've got at least 3.
Yeah.
Well, I do appreciate that. I mean, it's just one of those things, like I hear people all the time talking about how they go back through and like experience it through the archive.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I never want anybody to go back and reread it through the archive. Like, I know it feels like it takes a long time in real time,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're reading stuff through an archive and you can just hit next.
Oh, it goes through by.
If the Bigfoot hunt were like 7 strips, if you read that in the archive, you'd be like, well, that was pointless. Like, it wouldn't be anything significant.
No,
Yeah.
it'd be over.
Whereas now it's like, oh, this was like an actual story. It makes sense. Okay, maybe eventually I'll just have to like give up the weekly format and just hole up and like draw entire issues at a time and just post them that way.
I've seen relatively new webcomikers kind of trying out that format where they're like, I just bang out 20 or 30 strips and then I just like release like 10 in one update, which I think is ballsy, but also like, no, don't do that.
I don't think it's terribly good.
Well, it's like, how do they
given
know
the way webcomics work?
Yeah.
Because like you basically have to constantly be in their face to remind them that you're around.
Yeah.
Because like if I did do that thing with JL8, I mean, maybe I'm kind of speaking out of turn, because like when I came back from my hiatus over the winter, that thing exploded.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe people would share it around and like tell other friends like, yo, it's back.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're playing in kind of a dangerous game with that, where it's like you're hoping that people are going to remember to check it out or whatever, and then for all you know, you had an audience and like you let them off the hook because you chose to update in a very odd schedule,
Right.
instead of like every week, every couple days, every day, whatever.
Yeah. It's playing to an audience is, I mean, you probably have more of an authority on that than I do, but like playing to an audience is a tricky business because you have to dance this line between like being a whore
and giving them what they want.
well, and giving them something of actual quality content, and like the time and the effort that it requires to actually produce that versus like the need to perform and remind them you exist. Like when at that point, you as a creator, you're kind of like, well, when does the loyalty come in? Like when are they gonna just know that they're gonna get something good for me and then they can just keep coming back? Like as opposed to, it seems to me as a webcomic creator, you kind of have to like work as hard 2 years in as you did 1 year in.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it is really tricky because, and this is probably something that I should start paying a bit more attention to, but like, I love my fans. I obviously would be nowhere without them, but at the same time, it's like I am really confident in my ability to tell the best story possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes it becomes not necessarily arrogance, but like I just have so little interest in catering to what people think that they want.
Right.
And I just have to try and believe that, like, you have to believe that you know best, and you just have to hope that they have enough faith in you to follow you down that road.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, everybody wants Lois to come back, everybody wants Diana and Bruce to be together,
Right.
everybody wants this, everybody wants that. And it's like, first of all, Lois will come back. It's just she needs to come back when I can give her real screen time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's pointless. Aquaman will show up, but I don't personally have that many stories to tell with him, so I have to handle it in my way. Like you say you want Bruce and Diana, but you didn't even know that you wanted Bruce and Diana until Bruce and Paul. Actually, not Paul, because Paul didn't work on JLU.
No, it was like
but
McDuffie.
yeah, until those guys decided, you know what, this might be a good idea. Like it's kind of one of those things where you have to go to them and be like, remember, you didn't know that you wanted this until someone showed it to you. You might not know, you might think you don't want to see Bruce and Karen together, but just wait until I show it to you.
Right.
Then make the decision. Because like I feel like it's going to be a really interesting story thing.
Yeah, there's stuff in your arc right now that I didn't expect A to see or B to be kind of really excited about. Like the Jean and his what is clearly coming up arc about being a Martian. I was like, where's that coming? Like, whoa, that kind of came out of left field. But like when you reread it, you're kind of like, well, it's kind of just been a long time coming, and it's a perfect opportunity to have that happen.
Yeah, and I mean, I will always be the first person to admit when I messed something up. Like, there have been, I mean, even kind of like in the birthday party arc, maybe some things I could have spent a little bit more time on to like really drive home that I may have lost over a little bit. You know, I've been thinking about this camping trip arc for like a long time now.
Really?
I mean, like I was saying earlier, like all these stories come like really naturally.
Yeah.
So I can't even tell you how many plot lines I've got lined up for the future.
That was actually going to be my question. It was going to be like, how far ahead do you think you are at this point?
Even then, it varies because there are storylines that I've had literally from the beginning of the comic.
Yeah.
That just keep getting like pushed further and further back in the queue because you think that like, oh, maybe I need to tackle some other stuff before I hit that stuff.
Yeah.
Or, you know, oh, I need to push this up because it might make this other story really sing better.
Yeah.
Or something. You know, like you're kind of always editing yourself, trying to find the best combination for the overall thing. The storylines I have lined up now, like if I just did all of them flat out.
Yeah.
Again, going back to like how slowly I really do work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's probably like 5 to 10 years worth of content. You know, and obviously that would shrink down immensely if it became like a monthly title.
Right.
Or something, you know, because like each one of those stories might be like 1 issue, 2 issues long.
Yeah.
But when you're only doing a page a week, that's a year's worth of content.
Yeah. You seem to have a good self-discipline about like what to use and when to use them. Like it's not just like I gotta get these stories out, and if I don't, I can't eat. Like no, you just put them out when they work. You know, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I think we've probably robbed you of your time long enough. We make that joke every time we talk to a creator that we've taken their time, but sometimes.
I mean, like I said, it's nice out, so I've just been sitting outside with my headphones in, so I'm not complaining.
Awesome. Well, fair enough, man. You know, we want to have like a real conversation, more collaboration. I want Ethan and Ben to be able to like actually like talk and know what we're talking about.
Well, like pose more questions.
Yeah,
that are, like,
and
really intricately in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And not just fluff. Like, what's your favorite color?
For the record, what is your favorite color?
Blue.
Nice.
It's the color of my car. So.
Awesome.
Sweet. What do you drive?
2014 Challenger RT Classic.
Shit.
Nice. Sweet.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how this arc progresses. I don't want to say winds down because, like, I feel like we're just getting started, and I'm really looking forward to more.
Yeah, admittedly, we kind of. I mean, like once it gets going, which is going to happen pretty soon. I'd say maybe like in another 6 updates or so. Once it gets going, it'll probably happen pretty quick, or at least it'll feel like it's happening quick because a lot is going to happen. I guess I can tease that you will see at least one adult hero in costume make an appearance.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I love your subtle like references and cameos that you'll throw in, like the Neil Gaiman appearance during the birthday arc was.
Oh god, I feel so bad about that thing.
Why?
Because people keep bugging him about it, and I'm just like, I just feel so bad because like I'll constantly be on Twitter and you know like I'll be mentioned or whatever.
Yeah.
And it'll be like, hey Neil, did you know that you were in this comic? And you know, like it's one of those things like I did it literally because I thought it would be funny.
Yeah.
But you never know how someone is going to perceive it.
No,
and
that's true.
I got really nervous that he'd think that I was basically doing it just to get attention from people.
Gotcha.
Which could not have been further from the truth. Like, honestly, had I known it would explode the way it did, I might have honestly rethought it. I still think it was, like, the right call, because people really did like it. You know, they weren't just responding to it because it was Neil. Like, they thought it was appropriate.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, thankfully he's been really, really cool about it.
I was going to say, have you
I have talked to him.
No kidding.
Very briefly about it. Well, because, like, I sent him I guess it was like a Tumblr message or maybe even on Twitter. And like when it first happened and I saw people like constantly blowing up his feed.
Yeah.
And I basically kind of apologized to him for it. I was like, hey man, you know, I'm really sorry that all these people are bugging you about this, but you know, I kind of explained to him why I did it, and I was like, I appreciate you being so cool about it. And you know, he was like, oh yeah, you know, like I went back and you know, like I really enjoyed it, and I went back and read some of the others and really enjoyed those too. So I was like, oh well, Jesus Christ.
That's awesome.
And then it was one of those things where it's like, well, if I've got you on the line, like, what would you recommend for a book?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, Anya's Ghost would be good. And I was like, well, Anya's Ghost it is. So the reason that he gives Clark Anya's Ghost is because that's what Neil told me he would recommend.
That is freaking
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Look at all
That's
this
awesome.
neat stuff we're getting. Well, listen, Yale, I really want to thank you for joining us today, for just sitting out in the sun or the moon. It's kind of dark now.
Yeah.
But hanging out with us, and it's been really great. I want to thank you for joining us.
Yeah, not at all. I've actually been kind of hankering to get on a podcast lately. I haven't really been asked so much the last couple months.
Oh,
so
man.
It's been fun.
Really cool.
Well, so they can go to facebook.com/JL8ComicLOL,
Mhm.
which I like that you also had that for your Yale Stewart Tumblr account, which is gifted LOL.
Well, I'm not gonna put gifted up there because people would think that's pretentious.
Fair enough.
So I figured like, you know, I mean, I was in the gifted program all throughout my life or whatever, but it's like, who effing cares about that? Like,
Right.
you know, it doesn't actually mean anything. So I thought, oh yeah, I'm gifted. Ha 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 ha. Like,
Right.
It's much better saying gifted LOL than like putting gifted in
Big bold
marks.
letters. Or, yeah, quotation marks.
It's
Mike.
like, it's gifted.
That might send the
wait a
wrong
minute,
message.
What is that?
Yeah,
I don't
oops.
think that.
Exactly.
yeah.
Thanks again for joining us, and everybody at home, we'll see you on the next episode of Big Shots, which will be next month, when we will be chatting with Dapper Dan Schoening, the artist on the just concluded IDW Ghostbusters comic, one of the best iterations of the Ghostbusters I think I've ever seen, and a really, really terrific guided boot. So we'll see you guys next time on Big Shots. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time on TV Little House and LittleHouseOnline.com.